Let me just quickly introduce myself. I'm Venkatesh Perumal. You can call me Venki. I'm part of the founding team, and I head the technology sales at CoreStack. I've been in the industry for the last 25 years. And what I've really seen in the cloud space for the last 10, 12 years, at least from all the hyperscalers, there are various issues which have been there 10 years back, and they're continuing to be there even now. And for the right reason, so because there is adoption has been increasing every day, right? What used to be, whether we want to go into cloud now or later, now it's almost kind of, with the pandemic coming in, it's almost like a gold rush, and I call it as cloud rush. A little bit about CoreStack. We've been in the space of cloud governance, providing multi-cloud governance since 2016. I have more than 100 plus customers globally, and the way that CoreStack really looks at governance is in multiple ways, right? In my title slide, there was a clue of how we look at governance in the first place. Whenever we talk about governance, implementation of governance, we always talk about only the security or only the access part. So let me just quickly reveal what that is. I hope you are able to see this: operations, security, cost, access, and resource. That is essentially what CoreStack presents it to everyone, and we call it as OSCAR. And OSCAR really promotes or addresses three key challenges that you see in the cloud. One is with respect to cost, the other one is security and compliance, and the third one is more from a cloud operations perspective. We have always looked at all of these three problems as interrelated. While they have been addressed in siloed, but we always feel that if you are able to implement a well-architected practice, you will be in a position to address FinOps, SecOps, and CloudOps. But for today's presentation, I'll focus more on security ops part of CoreStack's capability, which lies more on the cloud security posture management. Now, that being said, quickly looking at how the industry has been in the past is, as we know, with a lot of workloads coming in and you're gaining more control over all of these workloads, there has been a demand for a lot of security ops, right? So and primarily because every cloud has made sure that you can provision the resource much more easily, you can change the resource much more easily, and that can result in potential security risk. And that is also has come in from Gartner that 95% of cloud security issues have resulted only because there was some sort of misconfiguration, right? So it is important to see and track the configurations that happens on a cloud account, be it AWS, Azure, or Google, on a real-time basis, and provide a capability to fix it in real time as well, right? We do have examples that have happened in the past where records have been exposed in the S3 bucket. Someone left the organization, but their access was still open, which resulted in data breach. But why these are happening on a continuous basis? Why are we hearing this, year on year, right? And that is primarily because we have still not understood the shared responsibility model, right? When we move the workloads into cloud, it is important to understand who is responsible for what. And that's where, all the hyperscalers clearly say that anything in the cloud is their responsibility and anything off the cloud is your responsibility. So whenever I go and provision a virtual machine or provision an S3 bucket, it is up to me whether I want to open up the S3 bucket access to the world or I'm going to put it in the encryption mode. It is totally up to me and it is my responsibility. Right? The moment we understand what is our responsibility, we will be in a position to automatically go and implement proactive measures. Now, that being said, there are various challenges that we still find, right? One, because as we continue to adopt more cloud, even in single cloud or multi-cloud, you're also structured in a way where you have multiple accounts, multiple regions, multiple workloads. And first thing that you need to really have is a unified visibility. How can you get a unified visibility of entire security posture? Now, security itself can be categorized into multiple ways, right? From a cloud security posture management, we look at it that there are three key areas. One, you need to have a full visibility into security threats, security vulnerability, and security anomalies that are rising because of the best practices assessments, right? So while you have visibility, it is also important that you are provided a power to all go and remediate these violations that are happening day in, day out in a much more real-time fashion. But then any configuration change that happens, it is important that while you are able to go ahead and manage your security posture, it is also important for certain industry to go ahead and assess it against specific standard, right? As Mike said in the last presentation, for healthcare, you need to be compliant with HIPAA. How do I ensure that all of my infrastructure services or past services that I am consuming today are always compliant? And why there has to be a continuous cloud assessment which is required in the cloud is because the nature of workload which continues to change every day, every moment, whenever a change occurs. But when we look at the fourth aspect, which is more on how do we ensure that all of these management and operations that you do from a security perspective, how do we ensure that it is also connected with your enterprise ecosystem from a service management perspective, right? Any violation that gets created, it needs to be triggered as an incident ticket. Any event that gets created needs to be sent to a SIEM tool, right? How do we do that much more on a real-time basis and seamlessly? Now, why the current methods have really failed to address these challenges, while cloud providers have provided all sort of services, right? Today, if you look at AWS, they do provide capabilities, have AWS Inspector, Guard Duty, they have AWS Cloud Config. Similarly, Azure has Azure Security Center. But when we look at more from an enterprise scale cloud security posture management, they certainly lack. How do we ensure that there is a unified way of implementing security ops? There have been organizations which have developed their own homegrown tool, but of course, can it be developed and be up to date at the speed of how cloud is changing? Possibly not, and hence it is not scalable. There are a lot of manual processes which are there, and because there is a lot of manual process, you're also the modules are they are not interconnected to talk to each other. Now, to address this, what do we need to do? We need to embrace what we call as zero trust principle that leads to promoting a least privilege governance, right? So what do we really mean by least privilege governance is whenever you provision any workload or provide access to your user, they need to have only the least privilege access, which means only the necessary access, necessary security policies that needs to be attached. And this is exactly what CoreStack promotes with our SecOps module, which is one of the modules in CoreStack, right, which is the CSPM. It has the component of security, which provides a unified visibility, wherein you can see, which hooks up into all of the native services like Guard Duty, Inspector, plus CoreStack's policies, which continues to run against all of the infrastructure services that gets provisioned or managed day in, day out, to provide a single unified dashboard which provides you information on what are the open threats, how can you go ahead and fix it, what are the vulnerabilities, and what are the best practices violations that you're getting. On the compliance front, there is there are controls which are already set, and that particular module essentially helps you to go ahead and assess your workloads which you're running on a continuous basis. We will go into in-depth of each of these modules in the next slides. And the last one is certainly operations, right? How do I ensure that I'm able to remediate, I'm able to pass on all of these alerts continuously to the third-party systems? Now, when we look at security operations itself, right, one of the key thing is, one, I'm able to get complete visibility into all of these security violations. But more importantly, if I have to implement a culture of security first, then I also need to make sure that every provisioning that happens, it needs to go through a scan that whether it is already compliant with all the security policies before even it gets deployed. That's what we call as proactive security governance, right? But can we really stop a user from going into the portal and doing a change to their infrastructure services or configuration? Possibly not, right? Because that's how it has been. We do not security should not really stop the speed at which you're doing the development, and hence you need to have a proper combination of both proactive as well as reactive checks, right? Proactive checks can be implemented right at the source. where you are publishing catalogs which are already security compliant, so that developers goes ahead and consumes, and you do not get any violations because it is already adhering to all of your required security policies. And from a reactive perspective, you need to continuously poll all of your resources events, which means every time an event happens, we need to get a posture in terms of what has happened, what event has occurred, and whether that event has resulted in any violations with respect to best practices, or it could be threat or vulnerabilities. So all these guardrails need to be implemented, and they need to be real time. Now, while you are able to address the security operations part, how do we ensure that you are put on a continuous compliance mode, right? CoreStack has developed what we call as abstracted cloud compliance control. That is the industry's first. What we have done is we have created a parent master control, and that master control already has tie-in into individual industry control. So all you need to do is you need to run assessment against AC3, but at any point in time, if you want to look at the posture of how you are benchmarked against NIST, you will get the assessment report. How you are benchmarked against FedRAMP or PCI DSS, you will get that posture. And these are all real time. Or if you want to run this on a regular basis, let's say you want to do the assessment on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, or half yearly, you can do that as well. And why it is very important, because compliance in the past used to be a 3 months effort or a 6 months effort, but with cloud coming in, you need to be compliant on almost on a daily basis. And this particular module essentially provides you a capability to do that. Now, the native cloud hyperscalers also provide what they call as a well-architected framework. CoreStack supports that well-architected framework and allows you to also go ahead and assess it against such as CIS benchmark. But more importantly, holistically, if you want to go ahead and implement what the hyperscalers call as well-architected framework across operations, security, cost, access, and resource, that is also done through CoreStack. Right? It provides you a capability to baseline all of the controls, but more importantly, what CoreStack also helps is it maps your objective, which is every audit has got one objective control, and within the objective control, it is already mapped to what we call as an automated policy. We have automatically categorized every control objective within an audit as automated check or a manual check, because everything cannot be automated, right? With respect to infrastructure services or a PaaS services that you're consuming across any of these cloud, you can run automated check to go ahead and find out whether they are compliant or not. However, there are some manual checks that you need to perform. That is something you can always go ahead and enter how you do it, and then when you run a full assessment, it provides how are you faring with respect to, are you 50% compliant, are you 60% compliant, or are you always 100% compliant? And that's how the compliance module really works. Now, from an operations perspective, right, one is while you're able to get all of the insights, you should also get a capability to go ahead and fix the issue. While there are enterprises who only want to just look at data and then go to the portal and go ahead and fix it, but there are organizations that are moving towards what we call as we want to implement auto remediation, which means as soon as an event occurs, it needs to identify whether there is a violation, and automatically a remediation needs to kick off so that before it becomes a huge risk, you are already fixing it. And that's exactly what happens in the operations module. But more importantly, for every violation that is being identified, it also requires an automated incident ticket. And if you want to configure a completely automated approval workflow within your ITSM, that can also be done for every change that you do through CoreStack, which means if let's say an S3 bucket is not encrypted and you are going to encrypt the S3 bucket, if you want that to automatically go and get it approved from line manager who wants to approve that particular change, that can also be implemented along with your ITSM. And that's exactly what these three modules really helps you to get into what we call as cloud security posture management on a continuous basis. Yeah, so today, CoreStack is available in all the marketplace, right? We are there in the AWS marketplace. We are also there in Azure marketplace. We support all three hyperscalers. And if you want to go to any marketplace and type in, cloud governance, cloud compliance and governance, you will see that. We offer free trials. And if you want to learn more about how we do these automated policy checks, how do we put you in a continuous governance motion, not only from a security perspective, because you also need to look at end-to-end governance, you can always reach out to us. My email address is venki@corestack.io. And that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about CoreStack. You can reach out to me anytime for any questions.